here's this worksheet. So value, lightness or darkness of an object to define form. Now, your two pencils. 4B is a soft pencil. That's why it says using your soft pencil, fill in the values 0 to 10, 0 being the lightest, 10 being the darkest. So your graphite is a lot softer in this pencil. Your 2H, it's a lot harder. So softer pencils, you get a lot darker. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start in the number 10 box, and you're gonna use your 4B pencil and you are gonna press down as hard as you can without breaking the pencil lead and filling in that box. So you're using a very high amount of pressure on your pencil. Okay, so just as hard as you can manage without breaking the pencil lead, the graphite. Okay, so if 10 is as dark as we can possibly get it, so if we consider that the blackest black that we can get, can you guys guess what 0 would be?
The lightest.
It would, okay, so some people said lightest light, or, and who said, raise your hand if you said white. Okay, it would be white. 0 is nothing. It means it is your lightest light, but it's not technically nothing. It's white. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to now build up a value scale where we get darker and darker as we go, but they all have to look different. So we're going to kind of switch gears, and we're going to start using very, very, very little pressure on our pencil. So notice how I'm holding this pencil. I've moved my hand to where I'm on the very back of the pencil. Like I'm not holding it like I write. I'm holding it towards the back. And when I do that, I can control it a lot more. Oscar, where you get the door. I can control this a lot more pressure-wise. So with this one, I am barely letting it skim the paper. Barely. So it is just barely going to add some of that graphite into that little box. It should be just minimally darker than 0. Okay? So now 2 is going to be just a little bit darker than 1. And 3 a little bit darker than 2, and 4 a little bit darker than 3, and you get the hint. Okay? So 2 is a little bit darker. I'm going to move my fingers up the pencil just a little bit more so I can start kind of exerting a little more pressure. Okay, and you want to make these nice and gradual. You don't want to do a real severe jump from one value to another. Okay, so now I'm going to 4. So your 0 through 4 should be pretty light grays. When you get to 5, that should be a pretty like neutral gray. Not too dark, not too light. Sometimes if you just kind of go back and forth over it, you build up the graphite. Okay, so each box, I just wanted to get darker than the one that came before it. Okay, so here I'm just kind of using various amounts of pressure. And you want kind of like a nice flat value. You don't want it to be really streaky. Okay, that's a pretty big jump that I just did there between 6 and 7. Do you guys see what I mean by what I'm saying, a pretty big jump? See how I've been like really gradual all the way through, and then like between 6 and 7, It's like a real big difference. So I think though that needs to stay 7. I think I just need to darken up 6 just a little bit. So I can get it just a little darker than 5, but not as dark as 7. So something like that. Now I'm getting real close for them to being pretty similar. So you want to make sure that they all look different. Okay, so 8 should kind of look darker than 7, and then 9 is going to be right in between. So it's going to be lighter than 10, but darker than 8. Okay, so kind of something like that. So you need to kind of see, like, do you have some that are very similar to each other? Like my 6 and 7 are pretty similar. So I either need to lighten up my 6, which I could take my eraser and kind of go over it, or I can kind of darken up my 7, but I have to be careful and make sure that it's not as dark as my 8. So it needs to be real gradual. I think there we go. How'd you guys do overall? Did okay? All right. Now we're going to do the same thing here, but we're going to use that 2H pencil, and you guys are going to see the biggest difference on what we mean by soft and hard graphite. Okay? So grab your 2H and do the same thing that we just did. Start in the 10 box. And press as hard as you can, and then compare it to the 10 box above. You guys see how much lighter it is? Yeah. Okay, so that's where different hardnesses of pencils come into play. You use your harder pencils for sketching, and you use your softer pencils for more shading. Okay? So why don't you guys do the same thing? Finish off this value scale. I'm just going to do it up here on the board with you, but I'm not going to like talk about it. Remember, 0 is white. And 1 with this H pencil, you're probably barely even going to see. Let's just leave that door cracked a little bit. All right, guys, so you're just kind of finishing out this scale. On your own. Really practice on your pressure. Really practice using light pressure on your 0 to 4s and hard pressure on your 6 to 10s. Okay? Just keep it going. So it might be a little harder for you guys to get different values, like your darker values with this lighter pencil. Okay, so some of the techniques that I'm having to use with my pencil, the harder one, the 2H, is that I'm having to fill these boxes in, changing the direction of my pencil. So like I'll have to kind of fill in where my pencil's moving vertical. Sometimes I need to fill in where my pencil's moving horizontal. Sometimes I need to do it diagonal. And I'm still kind of struggling getting these last ones in here to make them all look different. Pretty much my 7 through 10 is kind of looking the same, and that's not good. I need to have more differentiation with it. So either I need to find a way to make that 10 darker, and I think I'm going to do that by using my pencil in different directions I hadn't before. So I'm going to kind of darken that 10 up, that it gives me a little more room without tearing through that paper. So be careful. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of iffy. These are not very differentiated. So what that means is I probably need to lighten these up a little bit more so that I can lighten that up. So if you ever need to go through and lighten out values, what you can do is kind of take an eraser and let it just kind of run over the top of what you've already done, and then you can kind of go and adjust. Okay, something kind of like that. All right, everybody do okay? Everybody finished both scales? Yes, sir. Sign out on the clipboard. Okay. Next is we're going to learn how to use a new tool, and using either of your pencils, we're going to make a nice blending scale, okay? I'm going to personally use the B pencil because I feel like it's easier for me to get more shades, okay? So what we're doing is we're making a value scale, but we're doing it all in one go, and we're going to be using a blending tool or that tortillon that's in your supply pack, okay? So I'm right-handed, so it's easier for me to work left to right. So I'm going to flip my worksheet upside down. Okay. So where 10 is now all the way on the left for me, and I'm using this B pencil, and I'm gonna use heavy pressure, and then as I move across this rectangle, I'm gonna lighten my pressure up more and more and more to where I get to where it's completely white. Now what I might do is I may start with really heavy pressure and lighten up to 5, then flip my worksheet back around and then start from 1 to go up to 4. Okay, so I can kind of split it up. So over here on the 10 side with my 4B pencil, I'm using really heavy pressure. Okay, then once I start getting about halfway between 9 and 10, I'm going to ease up my pressure just a little bit. Not a whole lot, and I'm going to go back over 10 because I can make it even darker. Okay, so every time that I get halfway in between two numbers, I want to lighten up my pressure. And I can kind of set a base first, and then I can go back and adjust too. So I'm going to come through 7. That's going to stay about the same. 8 needs to be a little darker, so I'm going to come back and adjust in a little bit. Go through 6, kind of stay with the same pressure. Then once I get between 6 and 5, I'm going to kind of lighten the pressure. And once I get between 5 and 4, I'm going to kind of stop. And so now I'm going to kind of flip I want to go this way with my worksheet. So now 10's on the bottom. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use my pencil this way so I can kind of take advantage of going in a different direction. Kind of go over what I did. So we should be seeing like a nice gradual fade. Okay, nice gradual fade. Okay, and so now I'm going to kind of flip from the other side. 0's completely white, so kind of about halfway in between 0 and 1 is I'll let my pencil kind of skim the top of that worksheet or top of that rectangle, the paper. And then as I get to the halfway point in between a letter or number, I'll start kind of pressing with more pressure and then keep it constant until I hit in between the next number and then a constant pressure. And then I kind of just want to even it out. So you're just kind of looking for a nice gradual fade here. Okay. Check to see if I have any tortillions here. Oh, that one's green. Okay, here we go. All right, guys. So I have a blending stump. It's different than your tortillion, but it's the same principle. So your tortillion is like this kind of tool. You guys see, okay? It's kind of like a papery. It's that gray thing that's in there that comes to a point. Yeah, it's a lot smaller than mine. It's called a tortillion, okay? And guys, it's just paper that's wrapped in on itself, okay? So you need to be gentle with it because you can damage it to where the point of it just retracts into itself and then you can't use it, okay? So a lot of people think that you should use your tortillon on its tip. You do not do that. You use it on the side. So you need to hold this differently. Do not hold it like a pencil. So what you're going to do is instead of holding it like a pencil, you're going to put your hand on top. So you'll have your middle and index finger. You're going to set the tortillon in the middle of that. The other point sticks in your palm, and then your thumb goes on top like this, or technically on bottom when you flip your hand. Okay, so you just need to hold it on its side. Okay, so now what I'm going to do to use this to blend is I'm going to start over in the tin area. I'm going to use this on its side, and I'm just going to kind of move it around in kind of circles with a little bit of pressure, and you're going to start seeing that everything's going to get a little darker. And as I move closer and closer to 0, I'm going to lessen my pressure more and more. So I'm using pretty hard pressure over here at the 10. And then I'm going to use less and less pressure as I move over because you still want those to be light over there. Okay, and that should give you a nice gradual value blend. Okay, where 0 is white. So I can kind of use my eraser in here to help with that. Okay. All right, everybody get it? Okay, where are we at? We're almost out of here, guys. So let's finish up. Let's just do this sphere. Start it. We won't be able to finish it. Okay. All right, guys. So let's just finish or start this sphere, and then we'll be done for today. Okay, so if we look at this sphere for our guideline, what part of that sphere is the absolute darkest value? What's the 10? The shadow, okay? So in our example over here, with our 4B pencil, this is going to be our 10, this shape right here. So I want you to get your 4B pencil, and I want you to fill in that space using your 4B pencil with a high amount of pressure. Let's just go ahead and make that our 10. So you guys will kind of start noticing that throughout the year, I'll be talking to you guys value-wise like in numbers. You know, you may come up and say, you know, Miss A, I did a 4 over here, but now that doesn't really look right. And I'll be like, oh no, it needed to be a 3 or something like that, or a 2. You need to lighten it up. And you guys, you'll understand that. You have this worksheet with you. You can use it as reference all the time. Okay, so working for this shadow to be as dark as I can possibly make it. So I'm using as hard as pressure as I can without breaking my pencil. Okay. All right, so the next inner ring to that cast shadow is going to be dark, but it needs to be lighter than that cast shadow. So this would be more like a 7 or an 8. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to be filling this sphere in ring by ring. Okay. Okay, now the next ring needs to be like a 6 or a 7. So it's still a dark shade, but it needs to be lighter than the one that came before it. And then I'm probably going to switch gears and then start going from 0 up. Okay, guys. So what we're going to do on Friday is we'll pick this back up. I'll already have this finished out, as in like the rings and like the values, and I'll just tell you what I've done, and then I'll just blend it with you because I don't want to start a whole nother video just for that, okay? So we're going to pick up here on Friday, and then we'll do a little bit more drawing practice, and then we'll talk about our project. All right, guys, go ahead and put your things up.